You're listening to Living with Lewy. Well, welcome back to this week's edition of Living with Lewy. We're back with Debra Kostiw, and we are going to be talking about communication, and we hope to bridge it a little bit later into how communication affects behavior. Is that correct, Deb?
Yes. Yes.
So, on your subject of communication, I happen to have something that was given to me today, as a matter of fact, by my therapy team. And it's actually a booklet on memory care that they brought to me. And it's really for my wife. And so I opened up to the section on communication today, just so we could talk about this. So, how would you like to start this communication about communication?
Well, Larry, I think that the whole concept of communication, a lot of people, they don't really understand how valuable communication is in our everyday life, first of all. But then to add in a person with cognitive decline into the mix really completely changes the whole ball game.
It
Um,
it seems to me that um, communication is not always what you say as it is how you say it.
right,
I
right.
used I used to tell people, I say, and I used to teach defensive driving and all these classes. But one of the things that I used to tell them is that you have a lot of choices to make.
Mhm.
And I said, if you don't believe me, I said, I'm going to give you a little illustration. If I go home from work tonight and I've had a bad day, I can either go home and I can walk in the house and I can say, honey, where's my dinner? Why isn't my dinner on the table yet? I said, probably not going to get the best response. I said, but if I go home and I fill the tub with nice bubble bath, put some roses, put a glass of wine there, I tuck her in and I cook dinner, I got a whole nother evening going on. I said, so the choice is, which button do you want to push? You want to push the bad button or the good button? And that is so true with communicating on any level. And it's, I think, especially as you say, with people like myself that have dementia. It's if my wife gets agitated, she knows to step back and take a breath, and
Right.
and and then come back at it rather than to just come right at me, because she knows that that's going to be met with not any type of physical aggression, but some verbal aggression, if you will.
Right. Yeah, and Larry, it's interesting that you kind of jumped right into where I was going to go more at the end, but
I jumped into the
since
deep end of the pool.
you just diving right in there, Larry, and that's what I love about you because I'm that kind of girl too. But so I want to kind of take that, if you don't mind,
And
and
dissect it.
I'd like to expand on that a little bit
Let's
as
do
a
it.
dementia expert on communication because it's something that caregivers, carers, and medical professionals, they don't put enough time into learning how to change the way they communicate with someone with cognitive decline in particular, because the communication can be either, just like you said, it can come off as positive or it can come off as negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So So a negative communication would be something that could trigger an argument. So, like telling someone you're not allowed to do something, or stop doing this, or you can't, right? Those are all words that could trigger or push someone into an argument. They're negative. Another one would be another thing that would incur a negative piece of communication would be, is this communication going to change the outcome? So if it's not going to make a difference in the outcome, then don't even go there. So, for instance, the daughter shows up and dad didn't take his pills that morning. And she's like, Dad, you forgot to take your medicine. Dad, oh my God, I called you and I told you to take your medicine. It's not going to change the outcome. He still didn't
Didn't
take
take his
the
medicine.
medication. So it's going to just turn into a negative problem. Another one is, and this is my biggest, most favorite one, is that communication going to knock them down again or make them feel crappy or feel like a failure? So we have to be asking ourselves as the cognitively intact person, because we're the one that really has the control over which way a conversation goes. Is this communication going to turn out to be negative? Is it going to trigger an argument, change an outcome, knock them down? Instead, we have to be asking ourselves, how can I make this conversation, this communication become a more positive situation? So, how can I give them power? So, a perfect example, like I just mentioned about the daughter showing up and saying, Oh, dad, you forgot to take your pills this morning. Instead, she could make up an excuse for him. Oh, dad, this way she's not going to embarrass him, right? Or make him feel like crap. Oh, dad, I notice your pills are still in here. Did you maybe get distracted by your favorite TV show?
Right.
Right?
It changes the whole thing.
Yeah. So it doesn't put blame. It doesn't induce an argument. It doesn't make them feel like a failure. So we have to give the person their power back. We have to help them build confidence, make them smile, and solve a problem.
That's one thing that, and I really, when you said make them smile, that is something that I really didn't notice about myself was the stoic look that is there.
Mm,
I noticed it when I was talking to someone else, and I asked my wife. I said, Is that the way I am?" She goes, "Yeah, more." And
mm.
so smiling is not something that I don't. I understand. Make me smile inside. I know I might not smile on my face, but make me smile inside. So I'm not going to get
Right.
argumentative.
Right. Good. Because we're not doing that, Larry.
We're not going to go there.
We're not going to go there. But you know what, Larry? It's so interesting when you bring up the fact about smiling, because first of all, communication is how we as human beings, how we express ourselves as individuals. So communication is being able to express how we feel, what our wishes and desires are. And if we can't do that, then that's when you start having behaviors and problems. When people can't express what they need or what they want. And when you have dementia, it gets harder and harder to do that as the disease progresses. So it's up to the person who's caring for them to be able to adjust to that communication, because for two cognitively intact people, communication is a 50-50 exchange of information.
Yes.
But when one person has dementia or neurodegeneration, it's lopsided. So somebody has to compensate for that. And it's not the person with dementia.
They don't have the ability to.
Right. Right. They can't control that.
Right.
They can't control their thoughts, emotions,
That's
words, choice of words.
that's something that being a person living with dementia, not being able to control is it's difficult
And
because
it's probably
even though
frustrating.
it is frustrating because I don't want um, to be aggressive in my words, but yet it comes out anyway, and it's like I like I can't filter it like I used to, if you will.
Right. Right. So you can't filter. So we, as the care partner or the medical professional, we have to put on our suit of armor. And
Yeah.
we have to just let it bounce off. We have to be forgiving. We have to be.
Yeah.
And that's something that I cover completely, like in my course. Like that's not something you can just tell somebody and then they can start practicing it. It's not one of those quick fixes. This is something that you have to kind of go over and over and over and over and over for it to really for you to really be able to do that. It's not
I think you have to remind yourself. I think my wife, I know, at times she has to remind herself, okay, wait a minute, and she'll even say, oh, honey, I'm sorry, and she'll put it another way. And so, yeah, it's you're right. It's not something that you're gonna be able to just go and turn a switch and go, okay. It's something you have to work at, and not only does the person have to put their suit of armor on and be forgiving, but I find that living with this on the other side of it, I also have to be forgiving when maybe she gets frustrated with me, and I have to be able to say, okay, and and try to not respond to that in a verbally aggressive manner. That make any sense?
it does. It really does. And
I
I
find
think for you in this particular situation, Larry, like you're in the stage of your disease process that you're still able to do that.
to a
But
degree.
yeah, but as the disease progresses, eventually, like,
Yeah.
you won't have that control anymore.
Well, that's like driving a car. I gave that up just recently.
Yeah,
And I gave it up because I had an incident that took place that made me say no. That if my body won't listen to what my brain is telling it to do, this could this could go south. And so no, I'm not going to hurt somebody. I'm not going to hurt myself.
yeah.
And I don't even remember where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
You know, the thing that I find extremely interesting about our meeting and our discussions is that you are on the caregiver perspective, and here I am on the other total opposite side of that camera, on the other
Yeah,
side of the lens, looking back, and so that's I think where there's a great deal of value in our conversations.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And Larry, when we talk about communication, I mean, everything around us, if you think about it, involves communication. Everything.
Yes, whether
Talking to people, um, anything that you read, street signs, signs on grocery stores. I mean, communication is literally everything. And so when a person loses that, like you mentioned, that's where the frustration and the anger can come in. So we as the care partners, if we can figure out the communication piece, which is definitely way more than, some snippets here and there. Um, you need like a real full training on that. But once you grasp that communication piece and have a really good handle on it, and you know what to say and what not to say, then you will reduce behaviors because behaviors are really a reaction to something. So by being able to communicate more successfully, we're going to greatly reduce the number of behaviors or reactions for people.
makes perfect sense to me. I will tell you that um, over this past weekend, I was seeing spiders crawling
Mhm.
across my pillow, and I told my wife, I said, honey, I said, there's something crawling across my pillows. She came in and she said, "Honey, I'm sorry that, but there's nothing there." And I was like, "Okay," but it was the calm demeanor. It wasn't "you're crazy, you're seeing things" or anything like that. There was not. In other words, like you said, the communication was more in a positive manner, and I guess I'm still at a point where I can kind of logically um, segregate the things that are mind tricks versus what's reality.
Yeah.
But that one was very, very vivid, and she just said no. So, and even just her entering into that exchange with me took my excuse me took my mind off of what I thought I was seeing,
Mm,
concentrated more on what she was saying, and it wasn't there. So, you know,
mm,
I that's all I can tell you.
yeah.
It,
I've had other clients, actually, like, bugs and spiders and things like that are very, very common, hallucinations for people with Lewy body dementia. And I actually do specific teaching on how to handle communication during, um, hallucinations, and the steps to take and the words to use, um, and how to diffuse that, and how to pretty much make it disappear and go away. It's really remarkable.
but
The
without
students just
saying it,
love it, and they use the techniques, and it's brilliant. It's just brilliant.
you know, we started this on communication and behavior, and we thought we'd hit the communication part, but they are so intertwined that we
They are.
can't not help but talk about both together.
I agree.
And even though that was what we had said, we're going to talk about communication, we'll talk about behavior later. There's actually no way to avoid it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's would you like me to tell you a little bit about like what percentages communication is?
You can share that with me and my audience, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Go
So,
ahead.
and this is for someone who's cognitively intact. So this isn't even a person with dementia.
Oh,
But 7% of communication is our words. Only 7%. So, like, somebody's going to understand you. Only 7% from what you say. 55% is your body language.
I was just gonna say,
And 38% is your facial expressions.
right,
So 90% or more of communication
as
is nonverbal.
right,
So you can say something as sweet as can be, but if you've got a scowl on your face, it's not going to work. Or if you're standing there with your arms crossed, you could say something as sweet as could be. You could tell somebody you love them, but if you've got this, nasty body language going on, you got your hands on your hips and you're tapping your foot and you're kind
more
of looking up in the sky, it's not gonna work. So there's so much to communication. There's so much, and yet, while not difficult, it does take a little practice. And it took me 15 years to perfect my models that I share with people now. And I've taken that 15 years and I've smushed it all together to make it so easy for people. And it's not necessarily hard steps, but you've got to implement them all and you've got to do it correctly or it's going to backfire. And I don't know about you, Larry, but usually the more upset I get, the longer it takes me to come down.
yeah, that's quite
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So if if we as the care person are trying our best, but the person with dementia is getting more and more agitated, it's obvious that we're doing something wrong. And so that's what I love teaching. I love teaching people how to diffuse that situation as soon as it starts so that instead of it escalating, we're bringing it back down instead. Because that's what we all want. We all want peace. We all want to be happy. And it is definitely achievable. It really is.
We kind of ran out of time here, and so we will continue this series with Deborah on behavior and communication and how they directly affect one another. So thank you.
Please remember, folks, that we are 100% voluntarily funded by our listeners. So please go to the link and at the bottom of your favorite podcast provider, and you'll find a link there that says support the show, or you can find us on GoFundMe under Living with Lewy podcast, and every dollar counts, and every dollar helps. So please take a minute and go in and support the show. We certainly would appreciate it. The only thing we try to do is cover our operating costs and equipment maintenance costs. So we thank you and have a great day. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this edition of Living with Lewy.